Hi, folks, and thank you for joining. I'm just going to give it a minute as everyone starts to join the webinar. Welcome. Hi, folks, just give it a little more time as everyone's joining. All right. Hi, folks. My name is David Gervin. I'm the Associate Director of Admission at Pitzer College, located in Claremont, California. Thank you all for taking the time to get to know the Claremont Colleges this evening on whatever various time zone you might be in. You're very much welcomed within this time frame for this hour for you to get a sense of each of the 5 colleges, undergraduate colleges within the Claremont Consortium. I'll have our presenters introduce themselves, and then we'll have a little bit of a program overview, and then go through each of the individual colleges individually. So starting off in founding order, do you mind just introducing yourself?
That would mean I go first. Hi, everybody. My name is Paola Franco. I'm a Senior Assistant Dean of Admissions at Pomona College, which also happens to be my alma mater. I graduated in 2017. Love talking about Pomona, especially alongside my 5C colleagues. I'll pass it over to Scripps.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kyla Fisher. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm an admission counselor at Scripps. And like Paola, I am also an alum from my college. I graduated from Scripps in 2021. Very excited to be chatting with you all today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Morales Lopez. I'm an Assistant Dean of Admission here at Claremont McKenna College. And I did not graduate from CMC, but I'm really excited to be here in this space with you all today.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Peter Osgood. I'm the Director of Admission at Harvey Mudd College. I'm the aged one in the group, and I have been working at the Claremont Colleges for a pretty long time. So I'm looking forward to interacting with you, and hopefully you'll have some good questions for us. Thanks very much. I'm going to pass it over, and you've already met Dave, so.
Yes, so you've met me as well. So I will also mention that throughout the presentation, feel free to utilize the Q&A box. We also have admission staff members that are chatters throughout the session to be able to answer any questions that you might have, whether it be specific to a particular college or a question about the consortium as well. I will say that there will be time at the end to have some Q&A, so if there's more general questions for the full group, feel free to save those. Otherwise, feel free to utilize that chat box as we go throughout. Just a little bit of agenda on where we'll be for this presentation. We're going to go through an overview of what the Claremont Consortium has in common across the 5 undergraduate schools, kind of an overview of what the point of the consortium and the benefits of it, before kicking into individual college overviews, as well as a Q&A. We will not have individual colleges in breakouts because we'll be able to answer your questions as we go throughout the session. But to kick us off, Peter, thank you for giving the 5C overview.
Sure. So this is a really unusual circumstance here in Claremont in that there are a total of 7 separate institutions that agree to work together. We communicate frequently. We have a lot of things in common. When I say 7, you're going to hear us talking about 5 because 2 of the schools are graduate schools, and those students are in kind of a different place in their development and their lives than the undergraduate students. So you're going to hear us talking about the 5 undergraduate colleges. You've been introduced to them already, and but I invite you to think about this overall like it's a family. Can you imagine having a cousin who lives next door to you? You're going to interact with each other frequently, but we agree that your bedroom is in your house and the rules in your aunt and uncle's house is a little different than your own. So with that, we all have several things that we share in common among the 5 undergraduate colleges. The first is that we're contiguous. We're literally next door to each other. What separates Harvey Mudd from Pitzer is a large rock and a bush. In other cases, there's a street. We're all residential. You would live on campus at your own school. So a student from Scripps is not going to live at Claremont McKenna College or vice versa. But if you're eager for Greek life, you'll have to be content with math and physics, because that's where you'll see your deltas and epsilons, sigmas, gammas, lambdas. We all agree that the classes should be small and interactive. We agree that the way we approach teaching and learning is very much in common with the liberal arts philosophy, which means close attention to detail, a lot of communication skills, a lot of discussion, interdisciplinary learning, looking across different fields, really understanding what it means to be a citizen in your community, both immediate and broader as a world community member. We also share some facilities. So the image that you see on the bottom here is of our library, which serves all of the colleges. We also have sort of concentric rings, if you will, for the way we serve our students in terms of their health and wellness. So we have a wellness center, we have counseling facilities, but each college as a separate institution wants to take responsibility for its own students. So the first port of call is your home base, and then there's Claremont Colleges wide opportunities. We all have the same kind of, not exactly the same, but we all embrace study abroad programs, research, internships, things like that. So among these 5 colleges in terms of athletics, this is maybe an interesting metaphor. You might think there would be one athletics team or 5. It turns out there are 2 competing ones. It's the only place I know of in the country, perhaps world, where the away team would dress at home and go a block and a half and play an away game, which is the most important game of the season. It's just goofy. But it works for us, and it's really dynamic. So if you go to the next slide, you can also see that we share where we're located. We're in Southern California. We're about an hour from the ocean. We're about 20 minutes, maybe, not even that long probably, to the mountains. We're about an hour and a half from the desert. We're about 35 minutes away from Disneyland, the world's biggest human trap built by a mouse. We are, if you go to the next slide, Dave, you can see just how we're right next door to each other. So each college within this group has its own identity. When we do the breakouts, we hope that'll make sense. When we talk about each college individually, you'll see that there's a bit different approach from one college to the next. And in fact, the history of each of these colleges in some significant ways reflects the social movements in this country at the time of this college's founding. And that's kind of interesting the way that plays out in the common experience. The learning experience is very much discussion oriented. So the way that we go to student select courses, all roughly 6,000 students in this 5 undergraduate colleges use the same portal to register for courses across the system. Now, each college is going to have its own ideas of how they want to structure their academic program, and they're different one from the other. But a student can very easily cross-register. A student from Pomona can take a course at Pitzer and vice versa. So classes meet at identical times. So there's no funny business about like, oh, this class has ended 5 minutes after the other class I wanted to take started. It can't work that way. So a 1:15 class universally ends at 2:30. Now you have 15 minutes to scamper to another college for your 2:45 class. You can eat meals at the other colleges. Interestingly enough, 3 of the residence halls at Scripps are closer to Harvey Mudd College's dining hall than their own. So you can move about. The grass is always greener at other colleges' pasture. You can enjoy that. Many of the clubs and activities that you might want to engage in, whether it's social activism, music, athletics, the most popular intramural sport, inner tube water polo, which we take more seriously than we should, but it's a lot of fun. Whether it's stuff that is more community service oriented, it's an organic farm, all these things are available to students. Kind of doesn't matter which college is sending you to. And yet each college has domain over its own process, has its own faculty, its own students, its own residence halls, its own president. And what makes this work is that we talk to each other. So there's 2 outlets for people interested in dance or for music. There are the theater program is shared across the colleges. There, in some cases, a single college offers their own science curriculum, but there are other outlets for science within the system. It's an interesting combination, but it works because we talk to each other a lot. All right, so what if we go on to the next slide? Different places you can see this image from. This almost certainly is the basketball game between Pomona Pitzer and Claremont Mudd Scripps. That's what we call the 6th Street rivalry. All these kinds of things to do. You could create your own, of course, but you're going to find probably there. I think it'd be challenging for a student coming to the Claremont Colleges to think of something we don't have already. And so again, it doesn't really matter which college is bringing you to that club. If we go to the next slide, what we do not share is information about you as an applicant to other colleges. It's none of my business if a student is applying to Harvey Mudd, but also to CMC. So we don't ask you that question. Each college has its own way of choosing students. But here are things that you can read that we kind of share in terms of the vehicle you use, the platform you use to apply. Some of us use our Questbridge colleges, some of us are not. We have different financial aid policies, but you can see that you'd apply to each college differently, and we have to be intentional about it. It does happen that a student might apply to multiple colleges, maybe 2, maybe 3. I think it'd be rare for 4. 5 sounds to me like someone who's got very confused ideas or conflicted ideas about the kind of person they want to grow into, because the colleges, as I hope you'll learn very soon, are really quite different from each other in personality, if I can attribute that to a college. So we have different policies about who we choose to admit and how we choose to support them financially. But the whole point is you can move across the system. You're going to be with other engaged students, both in terms of their intellectual development as well as their social activity, within a community of about 6,000 students, and still have really small classes and a lot of interaction with faculty and fellow students. It's a win-win. So with that, I think I should pass the torch over to Paula to talk about the founding college in the group and also my alma mater, Pomona College.
I love that, Peter. So there are 2 Pomona alumni here today, and I'm happy to introduce you all to a little bit of what we do and who we are down at Pomona. So as was mentioned, Pomona was the founding member of the Claremont Colleges, and that was very intentional. A group of folks got together and wanted to bring a college of the New England type, as is often said, to the West Coast. And they decided to do that, to bring that liberal arts model, that learning for the sake of learning kind of spirit to the West Coast, and embed that and marry those 2 things together. And that's what we continue to do and who we continue to be today. What that means for our students in practice, if you will, is a sense of wonder, a sense of exploration, a sense of curiosity that is certainly valued and fostered during your time at Pomona. Some of the things that help us do that, some of the hallmarks of the Pomona experience, include our ID1 Interdisciplinary 1 critical inquiry courses. These are the only courses that every single Pomona's first-year student is required to take in your first semester on campus. And these, again, embed that spirit of curiosity, of wonder, a sense of play even. These critical inquiry courses set the tone for your time at Pomona in a few ways. And one, they are strictly capped at 15 students. Again, setting the tone for what the kind of class sizes that you might expect at a place like Pomona. They are also fun in theme. We have a number of them that cover things like Disneyland, or that cover art and evil subjects in the study of art, or even my ID1 class, which was on Radiohead. That band maybe means a little bit more to the panelists here than maybe the students in the audience, but I got to listen to music and then write about it. So again, the sense of enjoying your learning and learning for the sake of learning. Some of the other ways we put that liberal arts education into action include our breadth of study requirements. These are 6 areas of study that we ask each student to take a class in. How each student goes about fulfilling those breadth of study requirements varies, and those methods or the path that each student takes are just about as diverse as our actual student body. That is another core value of the Pomona experience. We really value diversity. We think that there is great value in you being in community with, learning with folks who have lived similar and maybe even different lives from you. Some of the things that I can point to there are just over half of our students identify as domestic students of color. Just over 11% of our students are from an international country, representing over 60 different citizenships in our student body. Just over 20% of our students are the first in their families to go to college. I could go on, but again, I hope that you're excited by the prospect of being in community with and learning from folks who have lived similar and different lives from you. Some of the other hallmarks of the Pomona experience include spending time outdoors, which is why I purposefully chose this background here. One of our beloved traditions, something that I did do my final year at Pomona, is this thing called Ski Beach Day, which is exactly what it sounds like. You go skiing in the morning and to the beach in the afternoon. There are very few places in the country where you can do that kind of thing. So we take advantage of our location here in Southern California, and again, give our students the opportunity to have some fun and enjoy a little bit of this, or a lot of the sunshine that we get here in Southern California. Other hallmarks of the Pomona experience include really building and fostering a sense of community, which is actually what you're seeing on the screen now. Another, again, hallmark of the Pomona experience is belonging to something we call a sponsor group. All of our first year class and our transfer students are placed into what we call sponsor groups of about 15 students that all live in the same wing of a residence hall and are assigned to generally sophomore, but perhaps junior or even senior sponsors. Your sponsors are there to help you navigate your first year. They are there to offer advice, to give you guidance. And your sponsor group at large is Pomona's first shot at giving you a sense of community, a sense of belonging, and honestly, giving you some friends. These relationships will certainly stick with you throughout your first year at Pomona, but don't be surprised if they stick with you beyond that. I'm still in contact with a number of my sponsor group siblings, as we sometimes call them, to this day. So fostering that sense of community is really, really important to us. The last thing that I'll sort of mention as a hallmark of the Pomona experience is curiosity. We, again, in living out that liberal arts spirit, we give our students a number of opportunities inside and out of the classroom to explore their curiosities. In embedding that California spirit into our education, I like to say that we give students the opportunities to have their own Eureka moment. Eureka, the state's model. And so again, we like to embed that into the experience here on campus, and even including off campus. The last slide that you'll see here is actually about some of the outside of the classroom opportunities that we offer. As Peter mentioned, these are going to be available at all of the Claremont colleges, but we really see these as ways of not only, yes, getting prepared for the workforce, but also exploring something, trying something new out for a semester or perhaps a summer. If you like some of the things that I mentioned, again, diversity, curiosity, a sense of play, a sense of wonder, and are interested in a very traditional liberal arts experience in a much warmer climate than most liberal arts colleges are located in, perhaps consider researching Pomona more and perhaps applying to us in the years to come. That is my quick little introduction to Pomona. I'll hand it off now to our colleagues over at Scripps.
All right, thank you so much. So now transitioning into the second school that was founded in Claremont, that would be Scripps. We were founded by Ellen Browning Scripps, who was a philanthropist and journalist who's from California, who partnered with the founder of Pomona College to continue developing this idea of an intentional consortium. As Peter said at the beginning, all of our schools are greatly influenced by the time of their founding. We were founded in 1926 during the suffragette movement, so we are the women's college of the Claremont Colleges and the only school that is gender-based in admission and student body. There is gender diversity at Scripps with trans and non-binary students, but we really focus on the marginalized gender experience, really making sure that students have access, resources, and support to higher education that might not be as afforded in a co-ed space. So where you really see that is in the classroom. We're very discussion-based, collaboration-based. Students are working together on a daily basis, working with their professor, and the professors are learning from their students. We also teach with an emphasis on interdisciplinary learning, which is the taking of multiple concepts and seeing how they all interact with each other. So in a class, you'll be looking at a subject from multiple viewpoints, different lenses, or incorporating multiple interests that you have. I think we're a very attractive school for students who have multiple academic interests and you have no idea how you're going to hone it into a singular major, or you know that you're passionate about something, but you want to see all the different lenses that it can be viewed by. This is definitely the educational system that would support your intellectual growth in that way. One of my favorite classes that I took at Scripps was actually about memes. It was a memes class focusing on media studies, art history, and philosophy to understand why we use memes at all. What are they going to be like in the future? And what can we learn about history through memes? And how long have memes been around? So that's the stupidest class I've ever taken, but also one of the most intellectually challenging courses that I think is offered. And it's a part of one of the hallmarks of our academic experience in our core curriculum. This is a 3-semester interdisciplinary course that students take to really get a strong foundation into what the Scripps academic experience is going to look like. So if you're like me and you don't know what interdisciplinary learning looks like when you first start in college, that's the real purpose of core, to really make sure that students are supported in pursuing their education, regardless of what that field of study or fields of study may be. So students start in Core 1, which is a joint taught class between about 15 to 20 different Scripps professors coming from various departments in our academics. And then they decide on a centralizing theme that changes every 3 years to really make sure that it's current and updated. And then they each teach a lecture to the entire first year class on how that theme ties into their field of study. So one week you're sitting in a lecture taught by a chemistry professor, then the next week it's a music professor, then a classics professor, and so on and so forth. And they're all creating this tie between all of their subjects through that shared theme. Students then break up into smaller discussion groups about twice a week with one of those core professors and about a dozen or so of their classmates to then engage in interdisciplinary learning discussions, learning how to connect the dots between those various lectures that they're attending and then the reading that goes with it. So it's a really helpful tool for students to see what interdisciplinary learning looks like, getting to meet a number of different professors at Scripps. So if you want to learn more about a department, talk to the professor after their lecture, or or sit and talk with them after your discussion class, and you're really able to get to know the professors around you, and they're able to get to know the first year class in a much stronger way, in a much larger way. And then you also get to meet every single person in your graduating class. So even if you're not in the same discussion group as your friend or someone that you really want to meet, go to the lecture together and sit next to each other. All of our core classes are designed to happen to finish right at lunch. So that way you can continue your conversation in the dining hall once it's ended. After Core 1, you take Core 2 and 3, Core 2 in the spring of your first year and Core 3 in the fall of your sophomore year, to continue engaging in interdisciplinary learning, but in a much more focused way, either tackling a specific subject or a cluster of topics and seeing how they all intersect with each other. Once a student is in Core 3, they then get to do a long-term project or assignment, which is loosely based on their senior thesis, to give them an understanding of what it looks like to do a long-term project or assignment at Scripps and how to rely on your professors and your classmates to continue working on that assignment. At the end of core, you're then free to continue taking any classes that you want. You'll be declaring your major that next semester after you finish core, and then you're engaging in those upper division courses that the core curriculum has prepared you to tackle. I'd also really like to talk about my Zoom background. This is Seal Court, and it's kind of our social hub on campus, and I think really exemplifies what the Scripps community is. There is a fountain right behind my head. We have our Motley Coffee House, which is right where my hand is, which is an entirely student-run coffee shop on our campus that takes your dining hall dollars, so you don't have to spend too much money to be able to spend time there. Our dining hall is right where the camera is for this view. And then it's also the location of one of my favorite traditions and our most frequent tradition, Wednesday afternoon tea. So we just missed it. It was yesterday. And every single Wednesday, our dining hall staff bring out tea, water, and a bunch of snacks for people to enjoy. They get really creative with what they have, and it's always a surprise what's offered. And there's options for students who are vegan, vegetarian, dairy-free, gluten-free. So every single person can enjoy the snacks that they provide. And it's a tradition that started in 1931 to create a time in the week where faculty, staff, and students can all make sure to be together. So it also makes them a lot more accessible. So if you want to catch up with a professor or talk to a department that you want to get a work study job in, we're all going to be at tea. So there's a number of ways that students can be connected to our entire community, either with their classmates or with our faculty and staff. And it's interwoven into every facet of our academic and social experience. So with that, I will turn it on over to CMC.
Thank you. All right, everyone. So CMC was founded in 1946, shortly after World War II. So that meant there were a number of young men who were returning from the war after serving our country with this real world experience. And so this was truly an amazing opportunity for our founders to establish a liberal arts community, liberal arts college that would marry these two worlds together. So think about the theory with the practice, that real world experience. And so that was their vision, to educate students to be thoughtful, productive, and responsible leaders in whatever profession they seek to pursue, whether that's in economics, business, or government. At CMC, you'll also notice there's a very strong focus on the practical application of what we're learning inside the classroom. So one of our unofficial mottos is learning for the sake of doing, because a lot of what students are learning, doing, and experiencing always goes back to this question of how can I apply this outside of the classroom? What action steps can I take to make the changes I want to see in my local communities, my state communities, the national community? And I believe this mission still rings true here at CMC through the different programs and opportunities available for students. At CMC, we have about 33 different majors students can choose from. Some of the most popular do include economics, government, international relations, and psychology, but we also do have a 3-2 econ engineering program for those interested within that. And we also have a philosophy, politics, and economics interdisciplinary major that is modeled after Oxford's own major. And if we go back to our mission, we want our students to engage in debate and discussions inside the classroom. So you'll find that within our community at CMC, diversity of thought is something that we value dearly. We embrace debate and discussions, and our classrooms reflect that. They are very discussion-based, and there's a big focus on sharing and understanding the viewpoints and perspectives of others. So when we think about the CMC curriculum, we divide it into thirds. So think of a pie. A third of a student's curriculum is dedicated specifically for the general education requirements, and that includes some humanities and social sciences courses. And then we reserve a third of their classes for major requirements, and the remaining third of the courses or curriculum is reserved for elective credits. And so this is where at CMC, we continue to tell our students and encourage students to put that knowledge into practice. And they'll be able to do that through different programs that I will talk about in just a bit. So after students have been taking these classes, learning new things, questioning, reflecting on these topics that they're learning inside and outside of the classrooms, we want them to take that knowledge and put that into practice. So at CMC, students have the opportunity to pursue graduate level research with professors through one of our 11 research institutes and centers. So if a student really wants to work on redistricting strategies, they can work with the Rose Institute for local and state government. But if a student wants to dive into what leadership means, they can work with the Kravis Leadership Institute. We also have different centers and institutes that focus on entrepreneurship or environmental analysis. There are also opportunities available for students to do research within the natural sciences as well. And I will share that about, I think 80% of our students will at one point or another pursue research within their CMC experience. Another exciting part about CMC is the heart of our community that we like to refer to it as the heart of the CMC community, which is the Athenaeum. So every Monday night, every Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, we will invite a different guest speaker to come and join us for a seated meal, for a talk, and then dive into a Q&A session. So one evening, a student might be hearing from Condoleezza Rice, and another, they might be hearing from a journalist, an author, a musician. The idea is to bring these individuals into our dining room and into our community and have our students the opportunity to engage in not only those thought-provoking lectures, but also those thought-provoking Q&A sessions. And so it encourages this free exchange of ideas that promotes civil and respectful dialogue and debate. Another way the CMC mission manifests itself is through our programs, specifically with the Washington, D.C. program and our Silicon Valley semester program. So every student at CMC has the opportunity to participate in a semester-long study program, whether either at the Washington, D.C. program or the Silicon Valley. Within these programs, they are full-time students, but also hold a full-time internship. So if they're within the Washington, D.C. program, they might be interning with a congresswoman, a congressman, a senator, working at a campaign on Capitol Hill, or interning with law firms, consulting firms, with journalists. And if they're within the Silicon Valley program, they might be interning with Google, Tesla, or startup companies. But as I mentioned, they're also full-time students. And so they're taking classes in the evening within the Silicon Valley program. Students might be taking classes in a leadership development course along with an economics and finance. And with the Washington, D.C. program, they will be taking classes on domestic and foreign policy. And within this, they will also be taking a fourth credit where they earn, which is actually a research where they're spearheaded based on their own internship experience. And so in addition to these two domestic study programs, students also have the opportunity to pursue your traditional study abroad experiences. We have over 140 different programs students can choose from in over 40 different countries. Another thing that I want to highlight within the CMC community is definitely our summer internship and experience program. Specifically, if a student finds an amazing summer opportunity, whether it's research or an internship, but it happens to be unpaid or underpaid, they can request funds from this summer internship and experience program, and they can get up to $9,000 to make that summer opportunity a reality. So this past summer alone, CMC invested about $2.3 million in that summer funding for student summer opportunities. And so if we were to break it down, I think every student gets about $4,500, but not every student will ask for funds within this program. And so again, this practical application of what students are learning is something really important within the CMC community. I will pass it along to my colleague at Harvey Mudd.
Okay, I get to take the spotlight again. Harvey Mudd is a really interesting place. We're the smallest of the colleges at roughly 900 students. We're surprisingly very balanced in terms of gender. It's almost exactly 50-50 male and female. It's pretty diverse, as are the other colleges in Claremont, but I think have made some real strides there and maybe among the leading institutions in this country for STEM in its diversity. We're both a liberal arts college and a STEM institution. All of our majors, actually this is today, we got an announcement of a new major. So we're up to 11 now. Woo! But a couple things about us. The main takeaways, we're very mission driven. Our mission in brief is that technology, if divorced from humanity, is worse than no technology at all. So there's a very important element of societal awareness in the way that we approach STEM education. This means also that the academic program is tremendously structured. There are several blocks of courses that students take at Mudd. The first set that dominates your first year is in a common core curriculum, and it's probably more structured than any other college in the group. It's a total of like 13 courses, and every student's going to take each one of those. But what this also does, it gives you an opportunity to experience these disciplines before you choose a major. But more importantly, it creates an incredibly collaborative learning style. If, for example, you're taking a course in linear algebra in your freshman year, and you would, who can help you? Literally the entire student body, which is a really powerful force. Students also take about 30% of their courses in the humanities and social sciences and arts. And while our core curriculum is very prescribed, the humanities, social science, and arts is not. Sometimes I'm asked if we have a foreign language requirement, and my snappy answer is yes, Python. But in truth, literally nothing is required in that, other than you distribute some of the courses across different disciplines. So you don't just know, say, engineering and art history, but you also take just short of a minor in a field that's not in math and science. And that's one of the things that probably distinguishes us from a lot of STEM institutions. It's also the case, and I should have mentioned this at the outset, we all offer research, but one of the real advantages of going to schools that are undergraduate focused is that there's no other people that our faculty would turn to keep their research projects running. So a sophomore, a first year student for which we have set asides, are going to get the cherry opportunities. And we require students to do research by the time they graduate. You'd have to do some sort of a capstone, which would either be a senior thesis, or more typical for students in applied areas like engineering, computer science, they would do a program called Clinic, which is a signature program in which our students work in teams of about 5 to solve a live problem sponsored by an outside, usually company or nonprofit. And these organizations have paid us about $50,000, and for some reason, they expect to get return on their investment. So now your team is going to have a deliverable in early May, and some really exciting opportunities come from that. All this plays out really well in what our students do after they graduate. We're among the country's leaders in the proportion of our graduates that go on to PhD programs. Our students tend to be heavily recruited for problem solving and tend to have pretty high salaries as a result of that. STEM education tends to reward well in that regard, and we're kind of on the high end as that work goes. But I think the best part of the college is the kind of community that you'd be joining. There's a tremendous, we're all in this together kind of attitude. We're particularly close-knit. Think of the things that unify us: a mission, core curriculum. We're residential. You can only go east or west on our campus. You go 3 minutes south, you're at Scripps. You have a heavy emphasis on communication skills, both writing and speaking. You've learned how to work in teams. You've learned how to work across disciplines. All that plays out really nicely in getting people pulled together. We're governed by a student-administered honor code, and that establishes an atmosphere of trust and of responsibility for all of the students in the way they treat their academic responsibilities as well as their peers. So it emboldens the faculty to give students take-home exams, for example. So this is also a place, because of the shared experience of the core, people can giggle about references to Schrodinger's cat, right? They all get it. You're in this place with people, you don't have to apologize for being smart or thinking that Taylor series or quantum mechanics is cool. You're around people get it. Not that that's the only thing you can talk about, because it turns out we have students who are interested in multiple of things, and you might have a best friend who's actually a student at Pomona or Scripps or something. So there's all kinds of opportunities for you to branch away and yet have this really awesome academic experience. So close-knit, collaborative, high impact education mission-centered, super collaborative. That's my main message to you. And with that, I'm going to leave it over to Dave for him to take us where we need to go next at Pitzer. Thank you, Dave.
Thanks so much, Peter. So last but not least is Pitzer College. We are the youngest of the Claremont institutions undergraduately. I like to say I have the youngest of three. I like to think we have the most energy of the group too, but that's just more of a personal statement. Starting off, just kind of in addition to, as my colleagues have mentioned, each of the 5 schools do very much have the foundation of who they are as an institution coming from the time that they were founded. And we were founded in 1963, really at a time when there was a lot of civil unrest and the social justice movement in the 1960s in America. So when it comes to us being the social justice driven institution of the 5, that's absolutely the case through our 5 core values that I'll talk about. At Pitzer, we really want to create socially responsible citizens that have a global perspective. So we are a school for risk takers. We're a community that is really looking to tackle on issues face to face with one another and with themselves and globally as well. So when it comes to students at Pitzer, they're really trying to become agents of change. It sounds a little cheesy, but it is the honest truth that Pitzer students want to make the world a better place and want to not only grow academically, but also personally and professionally along the way. So when it comes to who we are as an institution, those 5 core values is what separates us, not only from other Claremont schools, but also liberal arts institutions. While there's certainly social justice values that come across. Starting off, I think interdisciplinary learning, it goes hand in hand with a lot of the schools, as mentioned previously. How it works at Pitzer specifically, we have about 40 majors. Some of the most popular ones include things like human biology or environmental analysis, or media studies or various other ones. So let's take human biology as an example. That does not necessarily mean just taking kind of strict biology classes that you might be thinking of you're used to in high school. That could be a human biology class that's looking at, for example, how childhood trauma affects the cortisone levels within children and how that affects their blood aspects and the cultural competencies of how that might affect different communities and looking at it from different perspectives as opposed to kind of a traditional setting that you might be probably used to in your high school experience. So having that interdisciplinary learning both inside and outside of the classroom is something important to Pitzer students. At Pitzer, we actually have field groups. We don't have academic departments. So we even want our faculty to work cross disciplines with one another. So a field group might have a psychology professor, sociology professor, environmental analysis professor, working hand in hand to cross-pollinate students to have those different perspectives within their classrooms. Also within that interdisciplinary aspect, we even allow students to major off campus within the consortium. So if there's any major or minor we don't offer at Pitzer specifically, you can take advantage of that across the consortium. And about 1 out of 4 students at Pitzer will double major. So I always like to say that your head will never hit the ceiling when it comes to academic experiences because you really get to chart your own path working with your academic advisors. And at the same time, you don't have to feel pigeonholed into one particular academics or majors. But also, let's be real, most of you on here might not know exactly what you want to major in. And the national average is college students change their major at least twice. So having that flexibility is definitely key and something our Pitzer students utilize all throughout their journey. How that classroom comes into play when it comes to social responsibility, I think is best shown through our example of our social justice theory and social justice praxis requirements. And that is 2-course component where every student at Pitzer will take advantage of a course that really dives deep into a particular issue affecting the community. So whether it be food deserts in Southern California or immigration rights or trans rights activism, you will learn about a particular issue affecting a community. And then in that second semester, actually partner with an organization or do community-based research or really put the hands-on experience with a community. So I like to view it as kind of the anti-volunteerism. I don't know if that's a word that still gets used by high school students, but when it comes to Pitzer students really engaging and being of service and with service, as opposed to just logging community service hours, I think that social responsibility component really allows students to have different perspectives, but also show their passions and learn new ones along the way. I think it really relates to being those agents of change across the campus. When it comes to a third core value of intercultural understanding, it is probably most popularly known through our study abroad programs. We even have 8 direct run programs through Pitzer, so you're with a cohort of other Pitzer students and Pitzer professors. We have about 60 programs, but If you want to go to a particular place, we also have the lovely study abroad options across the consortium that many students at Pitzer will take advantage of as well. Over half of students at Pitzer will study abroad at least once. It's highly encouraged. We even have summer programs as well, and students can study abroad up to 3 times. So you don't even have to be limited to one particular opportunity. I will say that intercultural understanding is not limited to just studying abroad. It's very important for, as many of my colleagues mentioned, the diversity on our campus and really having different voices to have the opportunity to feel welcomed and also challenged at the same time. So we have 11 different affinity group organizations. So having that mentorship component, safe spaces for students across campus, whether it be through religious identity, ethnic diversity, sexual identity, really making sure that students have a voice and are allowed to be heard, but also not have that same experience that they had in high school and have those different perspectives that allow them to grow as a person, certainly throughout their time at Pitzer. The fourth and probably most obvious of our core values is environmental sustainability. If we were on campus right now, I like to joke and say that our students are friendly, but our campus is prickly. And that's because of all the cacti. It is purposely so. 75% of our campus is native California drought-resistant plants. So we've had a rainy winter in California this season, but for the most part, our campus is perfectly good to be acclimatized to where we are in Southern California. Very much so, environmental engagement is something that I think is honestly unavoidable if you are a Pitzer student. It comes across in many different ways in the classroom and just living on campus. For example, our residence halls have smart air conditioning that will turn off if a student opens a window or a door. We have a gray water system that will recycle the water that is utilized in the showers on campus. I don't fully understand the science on how they take the soap and water out. Maybe one of our science students could explain it better than I could. But I think when it comes to environmental sustainability, very much the campus that goes beyond just banning plastic straws and water bottles across campus. We did that a long time ago. I think that the best example, and also relates to other core values, is the fact that we were the first school on the West Coast to divest from fossil fuels when it comes to our endowment. And that was student-run initiative. So I think what's great about the student voices, it can come across in many different ways, but something as high as where are our endowments coming from? That is something that students do have a seat at the table to push through those changes. And I think that environmental sustainability is probably the most obvious across our campus in different ways. Another great example is we had students that wanted to push for more eco-friendly and vegetarian and vegan options in our dining hall. So we have a Green Monday initiative that was led by students. I like to think of it as a meatless Monday. So when it comes to environmental sustainability, that is something that is very passionate for a lot of our students across campus, and very accessible as well. And then the last of our core values is student engagement. I think when it comes to student engagement, it is my personal favorite of the 5 core values. We actually run on a shared governance model at Pitzer. So that means as students, we have a requirement that there must be at least one student on every single governing body here at Pitzer. So whether it be our faculty hiring committees or our campus aesthetics committee deciding what murals across campus, or even just our presidential search committee that's ongoing. Students have a seat at the table to help shape their experience. So I always like to say that the Pitzer that you come in as a first-year student is going to look different than when you graduate, because you and your other fellow peers are helping shape the student experience. I think that I love that the Pitzer experience isn't so deeply rooted in traditions that have been happening, because students understand that they want to cultivate their own and create new ones throughout their time. When it comes to that student engagement and piece, student leadership is something that Pitzer students get. Sometimes I wonder when they sleep because they're so involved. So when it comes to clubs and organizations or our student senate across campus, students definitely are able to partner and really be with not only administration, but administration is welcoming to that and wants the student experience in many different ways. So I know we have about 10 minutes or so for questions. We'll speed through each of those. Thank you all for answering questions throughout. We can open it up to the group. So if there is, to my colleagues that have been looking at the groups, is there any questions in particular that the panelists could answer, and it's more general?
It looks like most of the questions are college specific, except for dorming across the campuses. As I think Peter mentioned, when you go attend any one of the colleges, your house, your home will be at your specific college. So unfortunately, there isn't the ability to dorm at another campus. Your best friend might be up at Scripps or Pitzer or what have you. You'll need to meet up, somewhere in the middle, go to the dining halls together, etc. But you won't be able to live with them, unfortunately. Students, we certainly welcome questions that all of us, or at least a few of us, could answer if you have any of those for us.
So I see a question that maybe each of us, if we can quickly go through, is the test optional policies for our institutions. I'll start off by Pitzer saying that we are actually test free. So we will not take into account SAT or ACT with regard to our admission policies. For international students, we do require English proficiency exams, but when it comes to standardized testing, we are the only one of the Claremonts that is test free.
Scripps is test optional, and not submitting scores doesn't change your likelihood of getting in or make you ineligible to any scholarships or financial aid we offer.
CMC will be test optional for this upcoming cycle, and moving forward, there will be conversations happening if we are going to continue this test optional policy.
For Mudd, we're kind of a combination of Scripps and CMC in that will be ACT and SAT optional for students applying next year. We're going to then talk to our faculty about the importance of those tests to the college and make a decision long term. The other thing I wanted to point out is that the proportion of the class that is admitted that does not have test scores is almost identical to their representation in the applicant pool. So it's not like we have a preference for students who do have test scores or who don't.
Pomona is on the same boat as CMC and Harvey Mudd, where we will be test optional for fall 2024 entry, TBD moving forward. Those conversations are currently happening on our campus.
All right, I'm seeing there's some questions about dual credit, AP credit, transfer credits. Would anyone like to take a stab at answering that, how that works?
If no one else will, I will, but anybody else want to go? All right, the policies will differ from college to college. I think I should probably just leave it at that without us going into the detail of it. But some colleges, it's an individual college. That's part of the virtue of each college being its own place and having its own community.
But I will certainly say each of us will have transfer credit policies on our website. So if you want to dive deep into the nitty-gritty on what we accept for AP exam scores, dual enrollment, things like that, it will certainly vary.
One of the questions that comes up not infrequently is, how do students do intercollegiate majors? So let's say a student is interested in media studies. So that student would end up taking courses at several, if not all, of the undergraduate colleges in Claremont to complete that program. So the faculty across the colleges are going to communicate frequently about what goes on in that program. In other cases, a student there's a small number of students, for example, at Harvey Mudd who might decide, hey, I wanted to be a politics major. And so now I'm going to choose a major at a different college. I'm going to get basically adopted by the department at that other college, but I'm still going to be a Harvey Mudd student. So that's called an off-campus major. And different colleges have different policies on that, depending on the way their academic program is structured.
Thank you, Peter. I will also reiterate that this session is being recorded and we will send this out to attendees afterwards.
This is a good question for us to answer. What's the most unique thing and your favorite thing about each of the Claremont colleges? We're getting kind of close to the end. This may be a good way to wrap it up.
Yes, I would agree. Thank you, Peter. So I guess to that question, my favorite thing about Pitzer is the fact that we actually have a student-run garden on campus that includes a chicken coop. So if you are curious, we added as of last year a live stream. So if you're ever curious to just check in, see how the chickens are doing at Pitzer, kind of say hello to them. We do have a live stream, but I do think that it is a great example that we have a student-run garden right on campus. So that's my favorite quirky thing about Pitzer specifically. But to the first part of Peter's question of the most unique, another favorite aspect that I have about Pitzer is we actually have something called orientation adventure. So every student at Pitzer during their first week will actually go on a trip somewhere throughout Southern California. So it's a great way in a smaller setting to really, in that transition to college, get to know other students with similar interests. So whether you're kayaking Catalina Island or backpacking on the beach, it's a great way. A lot of them do involve outdoors, but if you're not the most outdoorsy, there's also food tours of downtown Los Angeles too. So it's a great way for students to connect with also the area of California right off the bat in their first week at Pitzer.
I can go next, and I'll just start off by saying, David, I have the chicken stream like bookmarked because I love checking in on the chickens. They're so cute. But my favorite thing about Pomona, and this is the answer that 90+% of our students will give you if you ask them, is the community, the people here. They are frankly unmatched. And of course, we love our students and the student body here, but I feel equally about staff and faculty. There are to this day staff members who work in the dining halls or in other spaces across campus who remember me as a student. And so all of that to say, that speaks to the sense of belonging, the sense of agency that every single person on our campus has about their role and their place in our community. So definitely community, the people, unparalleled. They're absolutely wonderful. The most unique thing I'd actually say are some of our traditions. And one of them that I love to talk about is the number 47. Again, in that sense of play, a sense of wonder, a little bit of quirkiness that we have to us at Pomona. Pomona community members celebrate the number 47. There are multiple theories and histories as to why we do this, but none of them are quite the most accurate, if you will. There's just so many of them, but we continue to do that. We continue to say chirp, chirp every time the clock strikes, something 47, or your bill comes out to 47. You have to say chirp, chirp. Again, just we're a little quirky, we're a little weird, and 47 is one of the ways that comes out. So love that about our community as well.
I'd say for Scripps, I changed my Zoom background to the most unique thing about us, which is our graffiti wall. So behind me is part of our rose garden. It's nestled between two of our oldest dorms, and it's where every single graduating class has put some sort of design or resemblance of their experience at Scripps and the world in which they're graduating in. So it's just a really cool tapestry of everyone who's been here. And I think it's a really great reflection of the impact that each individual student has on our campus, that you're quite literally leaving your mark on Scripps by the time that you graduate. And it's especially nice for me because my name is on there now. So I'm like a little bit over here. But I always offer, if you come to Scripps and you find me, I will give you a Motley coupon. So if you come visit our campus, that is a sweet deal. You're getting like $4. So come find me.
At CMC, I would say my favorite thing is called AFT. So every weekday from 3 to 4:30, there is an assortment of baked goods, which is very dangerous when you're in the office every day. We will often take a walk as an admissions office and talk to students there. And there's a lot of, like, as I mentioned, a lot of baked goods, but also teas, juice, water, coffee available for students. And students will also go to AFT with their professors or take a little break from class if they're in class to get a really great, delicious brownie. And I would say, I think the most unique part about CMC is definitely our Athenaeum. I think having access to so many amazing guest speakers 4 or 5 days a week, I think is truly a phenomenal opportunity for students to expand their knowledge in a specific field or topic that they're already interested in, or even learn about new topics.
For Mudd, I've already talked about the clinic program. We also have an unusual major in mathematical and computational biology, which is really unusual at the undergraduate level. But you also asked about favorite things. So you may remember that about a month ago was Valentine's Day. And so students at the college put up a heart for every single student member, faculty member, and staff member. And you can go around and give each other, not romantic, but little pick-me-ups. And we put that to a height of about 4.5 feet in every wall and window space in our dining hall. And it's just a way to make you feel appreciated and that you're not alone. And I really like that sense of community that engenders at Mudd.
Well, we're right at 6 o'clock. I want to thank you all for your questions throughout the session, as well as getting a sense to learn more about the Claremont Consortium and all our individual colleges. The conversation does not need to stop here. If you do have any further questions, I know we weren't able to get to every single one, but did answer over 200. So thank you for keeping those coming all throughout the hour. So yes, feel free to reach out to any of our individual offices if you do happen to have any further questions. Also, feel free to take advantage of checking out the territories for your particular admission representative that might be connecting with you for your particular high school or state. Thank you. We wish you all the best. I know it's a stressful process in college search, but we are here to help as you go along.
A shout out to our staff who helped answer all those questions in the background. So well done, all of you. You guys your fingers were ripping through those questions. We really appreciate that.
Great. Thank you all and have a good evening.